Good morning. This is Non-Monogamous Mark. I'm the co-founder and executive director of Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association, and this morning I'm going to share my breakfast with you. Because I have talked to you recently about how 4 months ago, 3 months ago, somewhere in that time frame, I made the biggest change in all of 2017 in my life. And that change was that I shifted where my eating now is 95% vegan. Yes, once in a while I'll still eat food that's non-vegan. We went out last week with a friend for lunch, and I had Mexican food, and I had a burrito that had pork in it. And so it's like, I don't think that's any big deal. For us, some people I know that they're vegans because they just don't accept the fact that anybody can eat any kind of animal product at all. But that's not me. If you want to eat your meat, then that's just fine. But I want you to know that if you eat your meat, you're killing yourself. I was killing myself. And the evidence is so clear out there, and we're told that we need milk for calcium. Well, you see, back in the 1980s, I had a business that was my first big successful business that I ever built. And that was with a product that was a dairy replacement product, milk product. And we distributed that product nationwide. And that product, I learned all about how the Dairy Association brainwashes us into thinking that we need to drink our milk for the calcium. And the fact is that if you're a cow, that calcium that's in milk will be really good for you. But the studies, the medical studies that have been done. Now, if you want to see the real truth of this, if you want to see and learn about the studies yourself, just go ahead and watch the documentary Forks Over Knives, and that documentary will go into this. And I'm sure there's other bits of information out there, lots of information out there as well. But the fact is that by consuming dairy products, which include milk, cheese, yogurt, the calcium that we get from those dairy products causes cancer. Now, I'm not a medical person at all, and so I'm going to, again, just refer you to go ahead and look into the research that's been done. It's extensive research that's been done by top-notch scientists all over the world. And so look at that documentary, Forks Over Knives, and see for yourself if that doesn't convince you that, yes, the calcium that we get from our dairy product is cancer-causing for the human body. It's not going to cause cancer. My wife, my first wife, she died of cancer. And she died of colon cancer. Now, that wasn't from dairy because she didn't drink milk. But you see, I told Lisa from the time that we first got married, and I started seeing some problems. She constantly consumed Tums, which she hid from me up until after we got married, not wanting me to see that aspect of her life. She constantly consumed Tums. She didn't have good regular bowel movements. And I saw these, and when she did have bowel movements, a lot of times she had to strain to have bowel movements. And when I saw these things go on, this is when I was in my 20s myself, and during my 20s was a period of life where I spent from about the age of 25 to 35 studying health and nutrition because it was just fascinating to me. And so from 25 to 35, I really launched into reading books and attending some seminars and stuff that helped me to learn a lot about health and nutrition, and also it helped me to learn how to listen to my body so that I know what my body is telling me. It's telling me that things aren't right, and it's giving me clues and hints that sometimes I have to learn to figure out what it is trying to tell me. But I would tell my wife then, Lisa, I would say, Lisa, you need more green leafy vegetables. You say she wouldn't eat vegetables. If it wasn't peas and corn, that was it. She didn't want it. And so I said, you need more green leafy vegetables in your diet. You need more fiber in your diet. Well, she didn't listen to me. And she continued through her life having those, she bought the big bottle of Tums and having that in her desk. And we had a home office. And having those in her desk so she'd kind of keep it out of my sight. But she went through her life consuming those Tums. She went through her life not having regular bowel movements. She went through her life, feeling like everything was fine because she bought into a whole U.S. medical system. That was her parents, really stressed this with her. and she would, made sure that we had to have insurance, and we had to have all this medical stuff that, checked up and what have you. Well, she had regular, after she turned 50, she had regular colon exams, and yet she went, when she was 56 years old, she went to the doctor for an ear infection. And with that ear infection, and she was in the doctor a year before for a physical exam, which included a colon exam, and all the stuff that they do for that when you're over 50. And so a year prior. But then she went to the doctor for an ear infection, and when she went to the doctor for an ear infection, they said, well, whoa, there's some real problems here. We don't have the ability to diagnose it here. We're going to send you off to the hospital right away. That day, she went off to the hospital, and that night they performed brain tumor surgery on her, and she had tumors all over in her brain, cancerous tumors. And so after that, after the surgery took place, then they said, well, let's find out what's causing this. Like the next day, we got to find out what's causing this. And it turns out she, at that point, was in stage 4 cancer, colon cancer. And it had spread to her brain and throughout her body. This was causing the tumors and what have you. You see, and so that didn't happen because that she didn't eat her vegetables and didn't have green leafy vegetables and fiber and things like that in her diet. That did not happen to her in her 20s. She didn't get cancer. In her 30s, she didn't get cancer. In her 40s, she didn't get cancer. But you know what? She did not live to see the age of 60. And this is a woman, she was not overweight, she was 5'4". Her weight kind of varied between 125 pounds and 140 pounds. If there was some early years in our 30s where we both gained a lot of weight. And she got up to about 190 pounds. But then she was regular about exercising. She went for walks every day. And then she also, one of the things that she told me was really important to her, and I made sure that she always had the ability to go to an athletic club to work out. I didn't go to the athletic club and work out, but she always had that ability. She thought it was so important to her health and her own fitness. So, the diet, I can't emphasize enough. What you eat is going to kill you if you don't start learning some of these things about your health and wellness and the food, and how our government and industry, food industry, and the Food and Drug Administration, and the pharmaceutical companies, and the medical industry, how all these people are all there trying to shove wrong information down your throat. Why do they do that? Because it's profitable for them. You can work hard all your life to amass a fortune, and yet it's shown that there's this huge shift in the last 10 years of a person's life where their fortunes shift over to the medical industry side of things. Because they'll do anything they can do to save their lives. Lisa, when she found that she had cancer, she spent a year and a half before she died fighting it, thinking, hoping that, yes, I'm going to beat this. And I don't know how much, she, at that point, was, her insurance paid for a lot of the bills, but I have no idea how many hundreds of thousands of dollars for the many surgeries and treatments that she had, that she racked up in medical bills in the last year and a half of her life. And so I just don't want this to happen to you. And I didn't want this to happen to me. And one of the things, again, going back to when I was in my 25 to 35, I learned to listen to my body and find out what my body is telling me. And so here for the last 2 years, I cut back in trying to eat more of a natural plant-based diet, but I still ate, a lot of food. For instance, my standard breakfast every morning, and I thought that breakfast was really good. My standard breakfast every morning included either fried eggs or scrambled eggs, dairy. Sometimes I'd throw some cheese in that because cheese is always good in that, right? And then once in a while, I'd have some bacon or some sausage included with that for breakfast. And so, over the last 2 years, though, I just wasn't happy with the trajectory. I made a video yesterday talking about our life's trajectory, and I wasn't happy with the trajectory of my own weight. In that, yes, I was losing weight. Last year, or 2016, we're in 2018 now, but 2016, I lost, 13 pounds that year. And I thought, that's wasn't what I wanted for all the effort I put into it and for all the things I did to try to lose weight. 13 pounds I thought was just a very small success. But so I saw my trajectory of what I wanted to achieve, instead of being at a slope like this, I saw that my trajectory was dipping down. No, I wasn't headed downhill. I didn't gain weight like I had for the year before. You know, it was headed in the right direction, but just not enough of the right direction. And so, you know, I needed to tune it up a little bit. And so that's where these documentaries and these medical studies that have been done finally sunk into my head enough. I know I've watched them for the last 3 years of my life. And they finally sunk into my head enough so that I realized, wait a minute, the reason I'm not getting the results that I want to have for my own health, and the fact that I want to live well into my hundreds until I'm over 100 years old, and I want to not just live so I'm dying, I want to live. I want to live so I feel good, I'm active, and I'm healthy. Again, that was in the video I made yesterday, so check that out. But, you know, the trajectory of my life wasn't going to take me where I wanted to go and where I needed to be with my weight. And so, you know, I decided that, okay, I'm going to give this a try. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? You know, if I give being a vegan, eating vegan, I am not a vegan because I don't identify myself by what I eat. But you see, most people, they live to eat. Think about that for a minute. They live to eat. I mean, their eating is central focus to so much in their life. When we go out on dates, what do? We go out to eat. You know, and we just don't feel like cooking. What do? We go out to eat, or we grab convenience food or fast food. And we live to eat. And I had a girlfriend years ago, and her husband was a big guy. And he told me, he says, well, my fate is that I'm going to die when I'm going to die. He just said that, you know, there was nothing he could change about that. He knew that that was his fate. He was going to die when he was going to die, and so he was going to live and enjoy his food until he died. And so, you know, that's not what the evidence shows us out there. If he were to take and be in a court and be up against a doctor that the doctor is saying, no, you can change your fate. And he's saying, yes, I can't change my fate. Guess who would win based upon the evidence? He would lose, and the doctor or the medical person or whoever was fighting against him would win because the evidence is overwhelming. It's there. But in our American culture and society, and not only our American culture, but our Western culture and society, we're seeing this now in China and in Southeast Asian countries that haven't known things like cancer and heart disease and diabetes and these kinds of things. They haven't known those things, but now in the last 10 years, they're starting to know these things, and they're creeping into their cultures. Why? Because they're starting to eat more of the standard American diet, the SAD diet. And that standard American diet has a lot of animal products in it. And so what I saw in myself was the fact that when I finally, you know, was watching these documentaries, and the last one that finally hit me was What the Health. And the evidence was so powerful. The fact that I'm consuming this animal fat into my body, and my body just does not digest that animal fat. I told you in the video yesterday that when I was in my 20s, I went to the doctor for a physical checkup, and my cholesterol was like 420, 430. It was over 400. My doctor was so alarmed. He says, you got to start taking these medications right now. You're not going to live to be 30 years old. I wasn't tremendously overweight, you know, maybe 10 pounds overweight. I wasn't 50 pounds or 100 pounds overweight. But he says, you're not going to live until you're 30 with your cholesterol being over 400. I told my doctor I refused to get on medication. I'm not going to enter that system that keeps you dependent without ever curing you, without ever allowing your body to heal. And I'll figure out, I told him, how to take care of my body and be responsible for myself. He said, well, you got to come back then every 3 months for another checkup to check your cholesterol. And I agreed to that with him. And sure enough, I turned it around without taking those pills and getting into that medical system that he wanted to get me started in dependent care. I turned it around. And how I turned it around is in my 20s, I spent a year eating vegan. And I gave up the thing that was most precious to me, and that was milk. I used to drink over a gallon of milk a day, each and every day. And I had done that for 10 years, since I was a teenager. Over 10 years of a gallon or more of milk. Now, I know that's excessive. You may not drink a gallon of milk. You may only drink a quart a week. And a quart a week, though, all that animal fat, even if you're drinking skim milk, the animal, there's still animal fat in it, and the calcium that you're getting, the calcium is a major contributor to cancer. And so you're putting all that in your body, and yes, it's not going to take and catch up with you, immediately. But like my wife, it took her in her 20s, her 30s, her 40s, and then finally in her 50s, it caught up with her. And I hope, yes, I'm giving you a strong message today and sharing my breakfast with you, but I hope I am getting through to some of you, because this really is a matter of life and death, and it's your life and your death. And at Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association, we're here to help you to increase the abundance, the liberation, and the freedom that you have in your life. How can you have more abundance if all your money is being spent on medical insurance and medical bills and being transferred to that side of the whole economy? How can you have more freedom when you are dependent on having to always be close to medical treatments, and you're dependent on on chemicals and all these pills that they give you and all these treatments? How can I lead you down a path of freedom when you can't have abundance and you can't have freedom because you're dependent? And so that's why I'm adamant about this. So I'm going to get on with sharing my breakfast with you. And so, like I said, just 4 months ago, Kathy is sitting over here to my right, out of camera. She's still in her jammies. And so just 4 months ago, our standard breakfast was usually eggs. And we ate organic eggs. So they were good eggs. They were expensive eggs compared to the cheap eggs you buy, non-organic. And so, but we'd have 2 eggs. And then I'd have my coffee, and which I am going to have my cup of coffee. I didn't get that here yet this morning, but I would have a cup of coffee, and oftentimes in my coffee I'd have half and half, because I really love half and half in my coffee. I love my coffee too, but I really love my half and half, my dairy, and that was kind of like where I gave up drinking milk years ago. That was my little consolation. Is being able to have a little half and half in my coffee, and so now what do I have? Oh, and then if I had cereal, because sometimes we didn't have eggs, we would have cereal, and it was organic cereal we'd make sure that it was high protein, multi-grain, high fiber, organic cereal. So it was good cereal, but then I'd pour a cup to a cup and a half of milk on it, and yes, I drank 2%, not whole milk and not skim, but it was 2%. And then I'd have my lattes in the afternoon. Usually in the afternoon, I'd love to have my latte. And my latte then was about 6 ounces to 8 ounces of 2% milk. And then you put the espresso in there. And so my dairy consumption in the course of one day, even though it didn't seem like a lot, because I gave up a lot back in my 20s. And yet it was still, my dairy consumption was about 16 ounces a day when you add it all up. And then if I had some cheese, whether cheese was on a sandwich with lunch or in a dish with dinner or with the eggs in the morning, add some cheese in there. And so the point is that yes, I took care of my cholesterol issue, but in the last couple of years, when I go to my physical and get my physical checkup, because yes, that's part of the medical industry that, I think that let's not ignore the medical science that we have available to us, but let's not become dependent upon it. And the doctors, it's not their fault. They just teach you and tell you the things that they're taught, and that they're not out there seeking out this information on how to be healthy. They're seeking out information that's good for their medical practice, keeping you dependent and coming back. And so I go to the doctor once a year for my physical exam. And over the last couple of years, my cholesterol has creeped up. And so that means that my trajectory for my cholesterol wasn't going where it's getting better. It was going where it was just creeping and getting just a little worse. Not bad, but the last medical checkup I had, my doctor told me, says, well, your cholesterol's starting to get in the high range. It's still acceptable, but it's in the range of being high, but still acceptable. Well, that wasn't acceptable to me, because I knew that starts creeping up, and that's that slope where that trajectory starts turning downward. And I didn't want that to happen. So now, in my breakfast this morning, I'll be sharing that with you, but what do I use instead? Now, Kathy, she doesn't use any dairy at all, or any I don't use dairy either. She doesn't use anything on her morning cereal, which I'll be showing you what we do for cereal. But we use almond milk instead, and I found that to be a delicious replacement. This is organic, unsweetened almond milk that's flavored a little bit with vanilla. And it's 30 calories per serving instead of 120 calories for my 2% milk. And so that's what I'll be using here this morning. And when you buy it by the case, I think there's 6 cartons in a case at Costco. It's really pretty cheap. I mean, compared, it's not too bad of a price. Now, so for breakfast, what I'm going to do is we prepare once a week or so. We cook up a batch. Sometimes we cook up quinoa, which is high in protein and also high in fiber. It's a grain. It's a plant-based product. Sometimes we cook up rice. This time, what we have here is a combination of quinoa and rice. And so I'm going to go ahead and just put in. So we keep this in the refrigerator, and so it's cold. And now Kathy, she likes her cereal warmed up. And so she puts and buzzes this in the microwave so it's warmed up for her. And so that's fine too. One of the great things that we have found since we could switch to being eating vegan is that there's so much variety and enjoyment in the food we have. We're totally shocked by that. We just thought, oh man, it's going to be boring eating vegan, But we've ate more good food in the last 3 months in converting to being 95% vegan than we did in the last 2 years of living here. And because now, I keep talking about this, and we keep talking about this, I don't know if it is my taste buds that have changed and been reset. I think that's part of it. Or if it's also the fact that we're just exploring wonderful, delicious foods. And so in this case then, this is just an idea that I got one day. And so that how we prepare our breakfast. And so now I'm going to go ahead. We put together. We went and we bought this case of 12 jars. They are 1 pint jars. They're the big mouth jars with the lids on them. This happens to be the Kerr brand. And so we bought this case because it just nicely fits in there, and we can pick the case up and put it in the cupboard when breakfast is over. And then when we go to have breakfast, we just put it down on the table. And this one here happens to be empty. But each one of these jars has different ingredients in it, and all healthy, plant-based ingredients, and organic as well. And that we feel organic is really important. And so we can take and turn our cereal bowl into anything we feel like that morning. There are 2 things that we eat every day on our cereal, and because we know how good it is for us, and it really tastes good. Actually, 3 things. And the first thing is, I'll go ahead and put some on here, and that's chia seeds. And we buy it in a plastic bag at Costco. Again, is where I prefer. It's organic, and it's the best price that we have found. And then the other thing is golden flaxseed. Golden flaxseed. It's an amazing source of fiber, just like the chia is. But also, golden flaxseed is one of the highest sources of omega-3 fatty acids you can find. We're told about salmon. Eat your salmon for the omega-3. Salmon doesn't even come close to this golden flaxseed in the omega-3 fatty acids. And those are good for helping us to fight antioxidants and cancer and things like that. And so they're really, really good for us. And they taste good. And then, now the one thing that we were told about eating vegan is that you don't have the ability from a plant-based diet to get B12 in your diet. And so we take a super B complex vitamin that gives us lots of B vitamins, but we also we take a little bit of nutritional yeast powder. And that's another source of not only B12 but a lot of nutrients. And so nutritional yeast powder. Now this stuff's not inexpensive. I think that this bottle was like $20, but at the health food store. But it's 10 ounces, and it lasts a long time. I mean, we're now a couple months into it, and it's about 2/3 gone. And so, and there's 2 of us using this every day, and so let's sprinkle a little bit of that there on the top, and some nutritional yeast powder. And so then I'm going to also next go ahead and I learned about how healthy it is to eat a date a day. So we joke with Kathy, I'm going to take her out on a date. And so we go and we go to the farm here in California. We go to the farmer's market and we buy fresh dates at the farmer's market, and they're organic. And so there's a lot of different variety of dates at the farmer's market, and so you may have to go to the grocery store where you're at. But so we have one date every morning, and then I'm going to continue going through my jars. And so here's some raisins, you know. And so do I want a little more fruity sweetness in my cereal this morning? No, I don't want that. So I'll go ahead and see if Kathy wants that. Oatmeal, you know, just plain uncooked oats. And again, organic, but they give me extra fiber and extra grains. And the thing that in my eating vegan is to eat lots of nuts and seeds and grains and vegetables. And then I eat a little bit of fruit. Not overdo it on fruit. That's the mistake that I think a lot of people make, is that because all love fruit, you know, because it's so sweet and sugary. Well, that's not going to give you the things that you really need in your diet. And here's something that I ran into at the store where we shop, and that is organic raw pumpkin seeds. And I just kind of thought, well, hey, maybe those would be good on our cereal, so I bought some. But then we looked up some things on the internet, and we found out how how good, and I don't even remember all we learned about them, but organic pumpkin seeds are like an amazing nutritional product, giving you nutrients that there's no way that eating fish and meat and dairy that you can come close to being able to get the benefits of organic raw pumpkin seeds. And they taste really good. And to give your food some texture, I'm going to go ahead and let Kathy have this because I know that she really enjoys these. These are walnuts, and I don't have walnuts as often. I know she does. Oh, then here's something that we learned, and this we learned from that book, How Not to Die. And he talks about cholesterol and all of the pills that you can get prescribed for cholesterol. Well, he says if you'll take just one of these nuts, 4 times a week. What kind of nut is this?
Brazil nut.
A Brazil nut. A Brazil nut. Now these suckers are expensive because we buy the organic ones and they're like $20 a pound. And so they're not at all inexpensive. Okay, so almonds. You know, you can buy sliced almonds as well, but I haven't found organic sliced almonds, and so that's why we don't have sliced almonds. I prefer sliced almonds. I've thought about ourselves running these through the food processor and slicing them up or something. But we have some almonds, and if I want to put in my cereal some really nice, good crunch, almonds are, again, it's a highly nutritious product. But so the thing is that, you know, find whatever nuts, seeds, and grains that you want to go ahead and make your own cereal. And it's a very inexpensive cereal. And the empty jar here is usually we keep cashews in there. You know, you can keep some cashews or some peanuts and things like that. And so there's lots that you can do in eating a great breakfast or even eating a really great lunch. Why couldn't you have this for lunch? And so, you know, something like this, maybe you could keep it at work. I think that's what Chris is doing now, my partner in Seattle. I think that she liked this idea so well that she set something up like this for herself, and she keeps it on one of the little shelves there at work, and then she can eat this kind of stuff at work as well. And so this morning we got some organic applesauce that I'm going to enjoy with my breakfast as well. I don't put that on my cereal. And so then I just take and finish it all off by putting my almond milk here on it. And there we go. I like to have plenty of almond milk. I like to have it be nice and wet. And then I'm going to just stir it all together. And I tell you what, we have enjoyed eating more since we've switched to be vegan than we have in the last 2 years of being here in California. And I think, well, not 2 years. I guess we've been here a year and a half. And we've enjoyed eating more because it tastes so good. And we can vary the taste. We got so much variety available to us. You know, every once in a while, if we're just in a rush in the morning, then we'll have this, some toast with some peanut butter, and I like a little bit of jelly on my peanut butter and toast, you know. So again, we use organic peanut butter when we do that, and we use organic jelly. Actually, it's a fruit spread. I don't use jelly or jam. I use a fruit spread, and it's organic. And but it does have some sugar in it, so I don't want to do that all very often. And sometimes for morning also, I'll go ahead and I'll slice up a banana and put in my fruit on my cereal. And so there's other things that you can do. I love bananas. Don't have any bananas here right now, but sometimes I slice up a banana. You might if you have some blueberries, whether they're frozen and thawed out or whether they're fresh. You know, you could put some blueberries in your cereal, and so you could take some fruit to things like that, and just really enjoy making a wonderful meal, whether it's your breakfast or your lunch. You know, don't get stuck that you have to, you know, this is what you're sold because they want to sell you all this breakfast cereal and breakfast this and breakfast that. You know, why can't you have, you know, a certain thing for breakfast, or a certain thing for lunch, or a certain thing for dinner. You know, it's about eating nutrient and fiber dense foods and feeding those to our body so that they are nutrient dense. And since we switched to eating vegan, that's what we've learned to do, is to eat nutrient dense foods that are absolutely delicious. I mean, we have made some of the most amazing, wonderful, delicious food. Now, here's one of the things we were told when we went to a meetup here in Ventura. We joined a meetup group on meetup.com, and so this is something I'd recommend to you, is to look to see if there's a group like this in your area. They get together for vegan potlucks once a month. And so we went and we joined that, and we hadn't even, I mean, it was like 1 week into this whole process, so we were still trying to learn and figure some things out, and we felt like, gee, we just don't know what to eat. Is there anything we can eat? But certainly there was a couple things there that people had at the potluck that really got my juices flowing, and that's where I started to realize, be creative with your food, and combine foods. Just remember, you want nutrient-dense foods. And so you start to look things up. Like we looked up the pumpkin seeds, and we thought, whoa, these pumpkin seeds are amazing, filled with nutrients. And so, you know, you start having fun and creating foods that you just love to eat. And it becomes a really great adventure, eating does. And so, but one of the things that they told us is that you will learn in shifting to eating vegan, is that you'll learn that eating this way takes a little longer for your food prep. Because you don't have all the convenience foods available to you, the prepackaged and processed foods. You're not going to be going out to the fast food in the restaurants as often. Do we go out to restaurants still? Yeah, we do. You know, not very often, but we do. You know, and so you're not going to be doing all that stuff. But, you know, think back when people in our country were healthier and weren't dying of heart attacks and stuff like this, back in the 1920s, 30s, and the 40s, you know, and the way that they ate was more like back on the farm type eating. And it was more whole grains. Now, yes, they had their meat and they had their dairy and all that kind of stuff as well. And some of the videos, like, you know, like Forks Over Knives, they'll tell you about some of that stuff, and the studies have been on all that, and how we can live to be over 100 years old and live happy and active lives. I talk to people and they say, I don't want to live to 100. Well, why not? Do you want to live another 2 years? Well, yeah, I do. Well, why do you want to live 2 more years? Oh, my kids, my grandkids, my life, you know, I got things I love doing. Well, then why don't you want to live until you're over 100 years old? Because most people associate getting old with going downhill. It's that trajectory that I talked about in yesterday's video. They associate getting old with going downhill, and it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to go downhill. You can keep going uphill. And so check out that video from yesterday about your trajectory, and make sure that your trajectory is headed uphill, not downhill. And so, you know, uphill is getting you where you want to go. And so check out that video yesterday. So there are 3 things that you can do here at this point. I appreciate your paying attention here today. But the first thing would be to go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. The second thing would be to go ahead and give me a like on the video. And the third thing would be to do for yourself is to go ahead and click on that link in the description. And when you click on that link, that'll take you over where you can get on our email list, and so that you can keep up to date about what we're doing in Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association and what my life, Non-Monogamous Mark, is involved in doing as well. So thank you for watching the video. I appreciate you taking the time to learn how to save your own life.